Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect, One Word Conversations. One Word Conversations is a relationship building, self-discovery conversation designed to look at the language that we use and how we can have connections and disconnections from one word. So, I am so excited to be a part of season 3. I mean, we've just gotten started, but we've had a number of amazing guests, and this one is a special one because it's from Australia. So let me do all the things that I do to kind of keep this thing rolling, but. As I do, I spotlight what's available at IamWilliamBrown.com is our U-cards. Our U-cards are a journal prompt and also a game and just fun. So I invite you to go to I Am William Brown, the store, to get your U-cards today. So the cards that I picked to set the intention for this conversation is I am curious, you are full of joy, and there is no one youer than you. Some other things that are available from IamWilliamBrown.com is the Happy Today Journal and the One Word Journal to help you participate in this show however you would like. So this is the moment where I invite you to like, share, comment, ask questions, subscribe, do all those things to let me know that you find value within this conversation and then you're a part of the conversation. And so with that in mind, I'm going to introduce our word. And our word for today is genuine. So genuine, I was concerned that I was going to pronounce it some other way than that. So we're going to go from there. Me and words. I think that's why I do one word at a time, because I have so much fun with words. So as I do, I invite my guests in so we can have a conversation. Hello.
Hi, William. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
This is the time where I invite my guests to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable to them.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Sheila Doerfler, and I'm a Psych K facilitator and founder of Luminescent Being. And I've also in my life done, I've been a writer, I've been an artist and a photographer. I've been a stay-at-home mom and a homeschooler for 20 years. I've also been on a healing journey since the age of 18, 19. And that is sort of the new phase of life that I'm in now, that my transition out of full-time motherhood is complete. So also, I'm originally American. I'm from near Philadelphia, but I've lived all over. And I've lived in many different states in the US, as well as I've lived overseas twice in Australia. I spent 9 years in Sydney, and we now live in a small city outside Melbourne called Geelong. And we've been here for coming up 2 years almost. And and it was about a year and a half ago that I started Luminescent Being. So
Congratulations. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I'm on the other side of the states. So isn't that amazing that you know we're from the same state and we meet a number of years later and you're in a different country. So that is great. So the question of today is, how does the word genuine land for you?
So it was interesting when you first said that was the word for today. It's actually one of my favorite words,
Wow.
and it's actually at first, I sat with it in my own heart and thought about, like, first, what is it to me, before I ran and looked it up.
Right.
Um, and I wanted to just see what it is for me first before I took in the information from like a dictionary or cultural
Right.
meaning. So it was really interesting to see that for me, it was very much about my personal journey as a seeker, my healing journey is trying to come back to self, trying to
Right.
come back to, my truest essence of who I am,
Mm.
and living an authentic life, coming from the heart, opening your heart. Like, for me, it was a very uplifting, beautiful word that was very much about, what my life journey has been.
Right.
Then I looked it up in the dictionary,
Hmm.
and it was really interesting. What struck me most was that many of the definitions, whether it was, Cambridge, Oxford, or Merriam-Webster,
Right.
they were all referencing genuine in terms of what it's not.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
not fake, not,
Hmm.
what were some of the other words? Inauthentic.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to see that so many of the definitions of it were referencing
What it wasn't, right?
what it wasn't, and
Wow.
to tell you what it is. So then I thought, well, that's interesting that they were all kind of using the same, almost like a negative way of defining the word.
Right.
So I looked up what the root was, because as a former English major, that's sort of what informs a word a lot, is to look up its origins.
Right.
And so the origins of the word come from Latin, from the 1500s, and from the root of, basically the same root word is genuine, gentleman, genuflect.
Hmm.
So it was all about your birth.
Wow.
So that the origins of the word are sort of talking about bloodlines, nobility,
Oh, wow.
which was really interesting because that's not about the heart at all. That's
Right.
about your genetics and
Right.
your worthiness and your bloodline.
Wow.
And so it was really interesting to me to sort of look at this, like disparity with this word, like where it came from and why it was even created.
Right.
It was all about, the father owning whether the child was truly his,
Right.
where
Wow.
the genuflect came from was that, the root word going back to the 1300s, so that the Latin root came from another root, and that was about, the meaning of that was knee. So it was, the father would traditionally get on his knee to acknowledge that
Wow.
or would take the child onto his knee
Right.
to acknowledge that the child was his. And then I grew up Catholic, so in Catholicism, you used to, I don't know if people still do, but you would have to genuflect before you would go into the aisle that you sat, you
Right.
know, and you would genuflect, many other times, as part of the rituals of Catholicism is
Right.
to genuflect. And that's where you start to bend down to one knee, to, honor, um,
Wow.
whatever you're doing at that moment. So it was really interesting
Wow.
that this word is so loaded, right?
Right. I'm just like, I'm trying to be my authentic self and genuine and all this other kind of stuff. And all this other stuff is happening in the background.
I
Right.
know. I know. It's, and that is like what we were talking before, before we came on live. it was also interesting because even the name of your show is about disconnect, connect.
Right.
And it is like our language can be, our reaction to language can be
Right.
so loaded that we can disconnect.
Right.
And so then I was sharing with you that in Psych K, you can actually, you know, there's like a whole other way that you can use Psych K to basically release any baggage you have around a word, a
Mm.
blockage you have that you don't even realize subconsciously you have around a single word.
Right.
So,
It's I guess there's here's the fascination. Here's where I'm being curious now. Is that, sometimes, I've said on this show and with other conversations that, and you just laid out that words just don't come with definitions. They come with stories and feelings and all the other kind of stuff. Sometimes and so this is the question that I'm asking. Sometimes when a word just doesn't sit right, do you believe that it is just the energy of the word that maybe we don't have any knowledge of, or that is just kind of just coming out even without the definition, even without the stories? We can just, what, I don't like that word, and that's just
right.
not going to do that. I'm just interested to see if there's a lot of other stuff going on. It's like I'm going to be mute now, and it's like, it's like I don't know what is
Well,
able.
yeah, I think you're right. Like there are so many layers to how we can react to a word. So just while you were asking that question, I could think of like 10.
Right.
So we have our own meaning that we bring to it. So that can be
Right.
intellectual, that can be emotional.
Right.
Then there's the history of the word,
Right.
meaning, how many thousands of years old is that word, and what was the intention in creating that word, and
Right.
whose language was it originally.
Right.
Um, so you have multi layers of cultural significance, because was the word borrowed from somebody else's culture? Was it usurped? Was it, um, is there a history of, one culture dominating another culture
Right.
and stealing
That word. Yeah.
words and meanings? Then
Mm.
you also have energetically, like you were saying, energetically, words have an energy to them. Then we have our own history with the word. Was it a word that, a parent used to kind of bludgeon you with? Or
Right.
is it a
Right.
word that you never could live up to? Is it a word that you actually like? Is it a word that resonates with with your own energy and what
Right.
who you are in the world? And then you also have, just in different cultures and different um, social stratas, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
is it a word
Very
that
much.
is
Right.
considered, words can be like very much tied in with our class,
Right.
right? So
Status symbol.
that
Right.
there are words that if you're working class, you use, that if you use words too high up, right, then people think you're pretentious and not
Right.
genuine, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, and it is like, as we tell stories, as we try to connect with people, if there's a perception that the language you're using and the words you're choosing are so different, people disconnect from you.
Right.
So if you're speaking above people and not connecting with them, they're not going to connect with you because they might feel you're looking down on them, right?
Right. Wow. Here's a thing that is coming up for me, is that, going back to the definition that you were saying, that it was, it's talking about more of what it wasn't, right? It's, you're not this, genuine is not this, not this, not that. It's almost like, perfect, our perfection. So we don't know what that is, but we strive for it, right?
Right.
And so now going back to genuine, right? We're trying, I think there's a goal for myself is to be my genuine self, right? To kind of
Right.
just be there for, but it's like, how can I really know what that is?
Yeah.
What is that? What am I? There's no comparison, right? It's like, yes, I'm genuine. Really? Right?
Right.
It's like, I don't know. So this thing of going to be our authentic self, our genuine self, what is it's almost,
Right.
futile, right? It's
And,
like,
and it's so interesting that you're asking that question now, because that was the other thing that I thought was peculiar when I looked up genuine in the dictionary, because I made notes actually, just in case I got lost in this exact question, was that the genuineness traditionally was something that was decided by forces outside of you. Which, think about it, that's
yeah,
bizarre, right?
right,
Because in spiritual terms and in self-growth terms and in, returning to who you truly are as a life path, right? Like as our work, as our inner work, this is what we're here to do.
right,
What it comes down to is this. It's not about bloodlines at all, actually.
right,
It's about your soul. It's about
right,
tuning into your soul. It's about tuning into your inner, like your
right,
inner knowing, your, like, who you were before the world got a hold of you, right?
right,
Like, so it's so interesting that for me, when I first took that word into my heart to sort of feel what it meant to me, it was very much about a higher self-centered
right.
sense of
Wow.
genuine, as opposed to looking it up in the dictionary and seeing that it was all about, like, who decides you're worthy, right?
Right.
Like,
Wow.
everyone else decides whether you're genuine, right? Whether you're
Wow.
authentic, whether you're, yeah. So very interesting.
It's, yeah, and here's the other thing, because there is, I guess there's the conversation and the challenge within my life, I'll speak for myself, that, my worthiness seems to always come up in question, right? Because of my doing. There is like, okay, can I do this? Am I worthy? All that other kind of stuff. And it is, um, that external, like you were saying with genuine, it was that external, something that was happening external that is like messing with my worthiness, but it has nothing to do with that. It's like the same thing, with genuine. It's like nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what anybody else says. You can look, but it's like, but that's where we go. That's where, we need validation from other people
Right,
to prove that, oh yeah, she's
right,
genuine, right?
right, right.
It's like,
And like, it's even more amplified now with the way that we live with, social media. And you're told that if you're going to have a business, you have to be pumping out content, and people need to trust you and know that you're genuine. And it's all about, like, it's still all about being out there
right,
trying to prove you're genuine by how good your content is and whether or not people connect and resonate with you. So it's still like, in your own private world, you could be living the most genuine life. You could be terrified to be visible. And then,
right,
of course, like, just
right.
basically, no one knows that you're living this genuine life, right? And
Wow.
it's Yeah, it's absurd.
It's really, there was, last year, I get like, I call them flashes of genius. But things just, downloads and things that just come together. And sometimes I understand them as soon as I get them. And most of the times I don't. But the one thing that's coming up as a reminder within this conversation is that, there's a talk about being your best self, right? I want to show up as my best, my best self. And so I wrote down that try to consider to not be your best self, but consider when you're yourself, you're your best.
Yeah.
And there was so much pushback from that, from people that were saying, no, we don't get to decide if that's our best self. It's like, yes, we do. Right. And it's like, are we so conditioned to have validation from other people
Yes.
about our worthiness or our genuineness, genuineness. There's just so many letters and things that are showing up in there. And that we have no access really to who we are, because we're waiting for other people to validate that,
Right.
all that other kind of stuff. And it's like, so how can we really show up genuine, if if our measurements are like external, right? And that they're all over the freaking map, right?
And honestly, that is the work. Like, that is all of our journey. That is our healing work to do. That, like, just coming in,
right,
to our family, you're being told, whether your parents are well-meaning and evolved and conscious and available and loving. Like, you could have amazing parents,
right,
but there's still this way that a child is related to by these the people around them.
Right.
And so and as a mom, to see that even though I had done so much inner work before having my son, it's wherever you're at when you bring that child in the world, like wherever you're at emotionally and in your own development, that is the filter you see that child through.
Right.
So,
wow.
And then once they start getting a little older and they're interacting with the world, whether it's, they start daycare or they start school or they have playmates or other moms or babysitters, every single person that comes in contact with your child, even shopkeepers, the way that they relate to the baby within an instant of seeing a child in a stroller, people are making judgments about that child. Wow. So I don't think you can be in a human body. Like, you cannot incarnate without absorbing good or bad, like without absorbing other people's opinions of you. And because of the way that our minds work at that age from 0 to 7, those beliefs slip in, because like in Psych K and, in a lot of the modern neuroscience, they're proving now that, the brain waves that children have, that they live in because their brains aren't fully developed from 0 to 7, they're sponges. So because you learn faster in alpha, and so you're absorbing what the social norms are. You're absorbing what the beliefs are. You're absorbing the rules, right? Because you have to download all this intense stuff that if you had to learn it consciously, you wouldn't, if you had to learn consciously how to walk,
Yeah.
just imagine how many years it would take you to learn to walk, right?
Wow.
it's interesting to think about, like, you can't escape um, growing up and the stuff that other people, the opinions other people, their values, their beliefs, we all internalize that. That's what conditioning is, right? Like, we've been conditioned, we've been programmed, right? So becoming genuine, right? Becoming your true self is about, well, who was I? Who am I without what other people have told me I am? So whether that's, the labels, you're the third child, you're the mistake, you're the, you're the favorite son, you've got the name, you've got your father's name, all those stories that get told over and over become part of our identity. And then we get confused about who we really are because we've taken on all these things. And then that's even before you're hit with all those expectations about how you're supposed to, what grades you're supposed to get and what you're supposed to achieve and what you're supposed to study and what career you're supposed to choose based on what your parents want, right? Like, just look at how many people spend their whole lives working a career that they absolutely hate because they've been conditioned into it, right? They've been told this is what you're good at, or this is what we value in our family. So no, you're not allowed to be an artist. You're not allowed to be a chef. You need a college degree and you need to become a lawyer and a doctor, and like, it's just,
I just, there is, you reminded, we talked earlier, when you you asked me, about, my name, and what I preferred. And I was, I was like, oh, long story and all that other kind of stuff about my name. But what you were saying there is, is a part of my journey. My dad's name is Willie. His given name is Willie. And so when I was a child, my nickname was Willie. But here's the kicker. My dad wasn't in the home. So my dad wasn't there, but there was a lot of relatives around me that knew my dad. And so I look like my dad. And so I was called Willie, but I had no connection to him. And so I'm trying to find my identity, myself, be my genuine self with a name that I had no connection to. So I created Bill because I could do that. I saw, it's like, hey, my name is William. I'm like 7. William is a little too grown up for me. Let's go with Bill, right? So I picked Bill. And so I went with Bill for a number of years, and I just embraced William the last few years to kind of embrace all of me because, I have conversations around labels. It was, interesting that you brought that up too, that I say that we are our labels and we're not our labels at the same time. And the more that we're able to embrace those ways that we show up and let those things go, then we can be our genuine self. And I think as you were talking, it's just like I think I got access to why it's so difficult for us to have self-discovery and self-awareness conversations. And because that's a part of my coaching, is because we are so conditioned to basically to get validation about our genuineness, or our worthiness, our authenticness from other people that has nothing to do with where we think we are. And so we can have a knowing and says, you know what, I'm feeling good. All it takes is, mom or someone that says, yeah, you don't seem good. And then it's like everything is in question, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right? It's like I was having a good day until you came, right?
Yeah.
And it's so how can we it's almost like unplugging from the matrix. How can we honor the people that are in our lives, because we're not, no man's an island, right? But at the same time, not listen to them, right? I don't know. I
Right.
don't,
And,
something else, right?
that is, it's really important for each of us to, especially if, if your audience are actively on a healing journey. This comes up a lot in the my meditation community, and also in the Psych K community. People doing inner work, as they evolve and change, they really struggle against the pre-existing relationships they had, because as you evolve as a human being, as a spiritual being having a human experience,
Right.
as you tap into deeper levels of that core, that aspect of yourself,
Right.
people who've held you very much in the 3D old version of you
Right.
are going to try to pull you back
Right.
into what they know, because our brains seek that familiar. They
Right.
seek what they know. They want you to remain the same, because for many people, it's too threatening when you
Right.
change,
Right.
right? So people struggle with how to relate to their families once they're doing healing work, once they're shifting their beliefs,
Right.
once they're addressing what their conditioning has done to them.
Right.
Once they start looking at these labels that they've absorbed that really aren't true,
Right.
right? Like
Mhm.
before you said, we are at the same time our labels, and we're not our labels. And I think we are our labels as that other people have given us for the duration of the time we believe them and we buy
Right.
into them. And I
Right.
think the minute that you start questioning, is this true for me? Is this thing that this perception that this person has always had of me, is this true? And
Right.
why have I believed it? And once you start to unpack that stuff and decide for yourself, like, does this serve me?
Right.
Did this belief about myself serve me? Where did it come from? Do I want to keep taking this into the new version of me, my truer version of me?
Right.
When you start asking those questions, you give yourself permission to let go of labels,
Right. Absolutely.
right? And let go of the conditioning, and just let go of the beliefs that go along with the labels. Because we do, as energetic beings, as spiritual beings living in a human body, we spend our lives absorbing other people's energy, other
Right.
people's beliefs, cultural stuff. I mean,
Right.
so it's not just our families, it's cultural stuff
Right.
too. So
And we
I think
right.
that is our work, though. Our work
Yeah.
is to, who am I? Like, to on a daily basis, ask
Right.
that. Like,
Right.
who am I? Like, if I remove all my friends, even the ones who see the best version of me,
Right.
even the friends that are evolving with me, who are doing similar work, who
Right.
are the friends who really hold out possibility for me to
Right.
be my best self, who love me no matter what. Like, finding friends like that at this point in my life is what helps.
Right.
You know, you need, as you let go, as you raise your vibration and become more conscious, a lot of people, and maybe this is where the difficulty is, people fall away because they don't
Right.
vibrate with you anymore.
Right.
And so you hanging on to them doesn't serve you.
Right.
But at the same time, like when it comes to family and people you can't necessarily just never see again,
Right.
you need to find, each of us needs to find a way to be with them
Mm.
without allowing them to trigger us anymore.
Right.
Like a way to be with them where it's just, you're going to have to learn to love them unconditionally and
Right.
just sort of let it like be like water on a duck's back, how
Right.
the water just like rolls off,
Right.
um, and not absorb the water at
Yeah.
all. Um, because
Yeah.
they will, want to pull you back into the version of you they know that they made even,
Right. There was a conversation that I had last season. The word was forward. And it just came to mind again, after you were saying that. And what came up for me within that conversation is that people don't want to like um, uh, bring you back in the stuff, right? They don't want to bring you back in the mud or bring you back in the pit or all that kind of stuff. I can't remember the exact analogy that I use. They are more concerned, I think what you were pointing to is you leaving. And I think there's a part of my self-discovery journey that was delayed because I thought that if I was all in on my journey, I would probably have to get a divorce because my wife was like, she was like, she didn't understand what I was talking about. I'm talking about taking, a silent retreat or something. And she was like, I don't know what the hell's going on with you. That
Yeah,
doesn't sound interesting. I mean, it was almost like,
yeah,
where'd my husband go? Right.
yeah.
Type of thing. And so I just stopped talking about it, and it was just, so, and I felt like I was not being genuine to myself, right? Because I didn't want her to feel that, she was losing me. Um, but it took me to really um, being genuine to myself and having an honest, loving conversation with my wife and saying, this is what I'm, this is what I'm doing. This is what's important to me. I so want, to be married. I so want you to at least understand. And we were able to kind of maneuver through that together.
Hmm.
So how it shows up for me is that we are all on this self-discovery journey alone with others,
Yeah.
and that with others, takes on different forms, and we can't, hold on. And even like you were saying, even people that are having these same conversations for themselves, i I have no access to what they're everything that they're getting and they're understanding. I can see some things that, oh, this is great, and you're open up to this. But as soon as I label them as something, then I'm confining them to that.
Right.
And then I'm keeping them from being everything that they are. So it's like once you get on this journey, you're just on it, right? you know.
Right, exactly. And
Um,
and and I think that what you just said is really, it's the struggle we have because of the brains we have and how our brains work, right?
right,
Like when you start to realize that, um, our brains seek to label, compartmentalize, understand, analyze, decipher, right? Like our brains are always interpreting.
right,
Um, our brains are always looking for what's familiar. But because, and I forget, there is some recent research,
mm,
that keeps referring to these primal instincts, were actually meant to save us and keep us
right,
safe, right?
right,
um, but like now in modern times, we're not thrown into the same kinds of life-threatening situations,
right,
out in nature with animals who are going to maul us, and
right,
plants that are going to kill us, right?
right,
Um, so, we I think that's also part of the work as we become more conscious and we try to move away from these automatic, inherited kind of primal functions of our brains and bodies, to become more
Right.
of the spiritual side of us, the higher consciousness that we
Right.
can be, that we
Right.
actually are,
Right.
when we remind ourselves and,
Right.
and sort of break the habits that we've created that keep us stuck in the smallness of,
Right.
the primal brain, right?
Right.
And really start opening up these other aspects of our consciousness and our physiology
Right.
and because we are so much more than just our brains
Right.
and our thoughts and our habits and our conditioning. Um, so we do want to label people, but that is our work to start
Right.
going, oh, isn't that interesting? I'm noticing in my mind as this person's talking that I'm making judgments about the way they look, what age they are, what their weight is, what they're wearing.
Right.
It's
All those
it's sort
things.
of
Right.
right. And I
I
think that's also part of why it's so important as we do, as we evolve and we do want to genuinely connect with people,
Right.
that it needs to be from the heart because the heart doesn't make judgments,
Right.
right? The
It's
brain,
right.
the brain is making the judgments.
Right.
Our
And
habits make judgments,
right.
right?
No, yeah, there's a workshop that I do, Beyond the Label workshop, where there's a section called "We Are All Label Makers," right? We're just it's just any every time we like show up, we're just making labels, right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, exactly.
And it's just like, but what could who can we be beyond that?
Right.
I think we can talk about this for hours, but
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure there's a lot of things just coming up. Is there anything that's come up within the conversation, or something that you want to, when you think of genuine, right? That you just want to leave everybody with to say, okay, this is what I got from this conversation.
Okay. Well, I think the only thing that I had thought in the shower before our conversation, when I was letting the words sort of marinate for me, was the connection I made between genuine and the importance of each of us coming back to who we truly are,
Hmm.
um, why we came here, what our soul purpose is,
Hmm.
what our, like I think that really is the root of genuine, that is how to use genuine as like a guidepost, as a lighthouse to, if a word had the power to guide you on your
Hmm.
journey,
Right.
genuine would be, at least for me,
Right.
all about coming back to, that inner essence. And that's why I called my business Luminescent Being, because it is that purest part of us that no
Hmm.
matter what traumas or pain we've lived through, no matter what conditioning has defined us, there is a part of us that has never been touched by any
Hmm.
of that, right? That is
Wow.
our true inner light, our genuineness, right?
Hmm.
So that is where I'd like to leave it.
Right. No, that is great. That is really beautiful, because there has been so much of, I guess, my life that I feel that has been tainted, right? That, it's cynical and all the other things. And just from that moment, that there are parts of us that haven't been tainted, that and also are speaking to us, and want to show up more fully, and beyond all the other things that has come up in our life. So, I mean, there is hope for all of us, and thank you. Yeah, that's a great place. That's a great place to leave it.
Great.
I'm gonna put you back in the green room, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been genuinely a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
A conversation here. I'll get the words. Great, but thank you very much. This has
Thank
been
you,
wonderful.
William. Thank you so much. It's been a delight.
Okay. Wow. Um, yeah, I really got that. There is that part, the genuine part of us that hasn't been tainted by anything else, that is speaking to us, that's inviting us to really show up as that. And it has nothing to do what anybody else thinks. So the work is trusting yourself, believing yourself, being curious, and recognize, as Dr. Seuss says, there is no one youer than you, the genuine you. Oh boy, I can take a breath to that. So I invite you to reach out to me at iamwilliambrown.com to have an introductory coaching session to see if we can have a conversation to help you be your best self, um, or just be yourself. Because the world wants you, the world needs you, but the world isn't waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow on One Word Conversations.